Welcome to Latvian Football Podcast, where today we're going to look back at the first qualification rounds of European games. For us, that is the Champions League and the UEFA Conference League. And we've all been waiting for this, and I must say it didn't really disappoint. We're doing well. So we'll start with our Champions League team of last year's champions, Valmiera FC, who faced Olimpija Ljubljana from Slovenia in their first qualifying round.
Unfortunately, didn't go as well. We can't say didn't go as planned. I don't know what was planned really. It was suspected, but
who was planning?
You would discount probably. But yeah, an overall 2-4 loss in which I gotta say, even though it was sort of predictable and Olimpija were the better team, they didn't really show that much. Where if Valmiera really got lucky in the second game at their home ground, I think they could have pulled a miracle. But yeah, just got a bit unlucky. Couldn't finish their chances, and overall, I would say a deserved loss. But it wasn't like hopeless. There was always hope, and both games ended in a 1-2 loss. Can't really say that they performed badly, but I know, even though Valmiera this season is not the best, I feel like they could have done better, because that team, the team that the starting lineup for the second game was actually quite all right, and if they had this lineup for every Beers League game, I think they could push for RFS and Riga's spots, but bit disappointing. But then again, kind of predictable, I'd say.
To me, this seemed like a fairly classical Valmiera in Europe. That first game was very poor. Olimpija, they were faster, they controlled the ball better, both in terms of possession, but also in terms of technique. The ball went where they needed it to go, and that wasn't the case for Valmiera, who in the first half of the first game in Slovenia, they seemed to have decided to park the bus and not really show much. They lined up 4-3-3, which isn't really a defensive formation. So all they could produce was three shots, 2 of which were on goal, which isn't bad, but I mean, that's against 12 for Olimpija, who managed to put 6 on target, and they just looked more aggressive, they looked more competent. Valmiera did a whole lot of running with very little to show for it, only controlling the ball 31% of the time. And it was just not good. They improved in the second half, and this one goal at the very end, that was a light of hope, a ray of hope for them. And it was a good goal, legitimately. A cross coming in from the left flank and just kind of a skimmed header in. Very powerful, but they in no way, shape or form deserved to come out with even a point out of the first fixture. They did improve for the second game, for the return leg, but ultimately just couldn't really compete, I guess.
Yeah, the first half was just poor. That's, as you said, nothing really else to say. But the second half, especially towards the end, when they scored, and by the way, it was Diop who scored. I think it's his first goal for Valmiera and first goal in forever, I think. And he scores it in Champions League. It's a bit weird, because for me he hasn't been that good this season. But yeah, somehow he did it. But I felt like the last 10 minutes of the second half of the first game, it felt like Olimpija had just stopped playing. Valmiera had a lot of the ball and a lot of these sort of half attacks. They didn't always end up like in a shot, but it felt like they could just outrun them. It felt like Olimpija was either tired or just didn't care that much. It felt like Valmiera could have done. The last 10 minutes, it felt like Olimpija isn't a good team. It was a bit weird, but Valmiera just couldn't produce. And yeah, it ended in a loss. But yeah, the second game was a completely different story. They sort of took over the control of the game and tried to do something. For me, I felt like including Diop in the starting lineup for the second game was a big mistake. He was by far the worst player in the first half. He seemed just sloppy, lazy, and I really don't understand why was he there. Just because he scored in the first game, or I felt like Endoy was the obvious choice, and I don't know. It was just he was subbed off after the first half instantly, so I don't think I'm saying anything wrong. I think it was a bit of a mistake from the coach. Who knows what could have uh, happened if he didn't start, but still.
It still seems like Valmiera just can have a lot of something's not quite there in their, I don't know, like mental disposition towards these European games. Because as you said in the first game, once they scored, they have awoken. Up until that point, it's all like nervous, and I don't know, like there's just many technical mistakes. There's not a lot of confidence. There are some players who are trying to do things, but I mean it's a team sport. So I don't even know why that's still the case. I mean, obviously it's their debut in the Champions League. Maybe there's that, but it's not the first time they play teams like Ljubljana. I mean, it's a good team, but it's not a great team. It's definitely a takeable team, especially for a team such as Valmiera, or a team that Valmiera was in last season. And as you said, the return game at Valmiera in front of the sold-out home stadium was much better. Just not good enough still, though. And that's a little bit frustrating with this particular team. And I don't know why they keep doing that. Why is there this, or these shaky knees? It seems the moment they get on the field against a team that's not from Latvia.
Yeah, it is. It is weird because they. Okay, well, if in this case, okay, it's understandable. Loss last year. I think they easily could have done it the previous year as well against Sudova, was it? I think.
Last year was Skandia.
Yeah, but the year before that, I think it was Sudova, a Lithuanian team, and yeah, it's a good point. It's a bit weird with them in Europe. I thought at this point by now they will have learned. It is their fourth year in Europe, and okay, it's Champions League. I get it, but still, the second game, it was a very even game, and the start was very hopeful, and they had some chances, and they looked all right. Yeah, but just couldn't finish, and then they conceded, and it was really, I think, the breaking point where okay, they need at that point they needed two goals to draw, three to win, and it was just a bit. It was a bit sad because they didn't really look that bad. They fought. Uh, can't really say anything against that. I think the both center backs are brilliant. Balua, this was amazing. A lot of sort of these interceptions and one headers, and Slieda, the youngster, looked very good. Yeah, but just in the attack, they weren't really clicking. The chemistry wasn't all there. There were some nice build-ups between Jalisco. Well, I saw the game live, so saw more of that. Jalisco was good. Fall was attacking a lot. But yeah, it's just some. I think it's because the team is so new. What was his name? Gausho. Yeah, it was only his like third game for Valmiera. He's a good attacker. Came over from RFS. But then there's Diop, who's been in the team for a long time, but not really playing that well. The link up wasn't there. Mena was good, but he was trying too much. Well, yeah, he was trying to be too individual with the ball. Of course, that's his best trait, and he can do that, but it was just a bit too much. It seemed like he's trying to prove something for himself, not really play for the team. And yeah, it sort of wasn't really clicking. Well, in the end, he got lucky with his individual efforts and got the goal from an impressive run. But at that point, it was pretty much too late. But before that, the most frustrating moment of the game, even before that, was when Gauchos tapped in a ball that was already going in goal, and he was offside. That was just this most disappointing moment. I think the ball was going in. It wasn't like straight. It was a bit diagonal, so maybe he thought it could have hit the post, but still, the striker's instincts worked against him this time. And yeah, what could have been if that went in, and it was, I think, only like a 60th, 70th minute. That was disappointing. Stole goal from Ruan Ribeiro, and yeah, and then just second goal for Olimpia from a corner. Very disappointing, very sloppy. Just fell asleep, and I think that pretty much sealed the game. But overall, it was still a nice sort of atmosphere in the stadium. It was a football festival, as we have said, and it was still overall nice and lovely, and the fans supported them. And I think Valmiera has one of the best fans in Latvia, because it's not only like the fans, the fan sector, the ultras, let's say that, who support the team, but pretty much the whole stadium. I think that's good for Valmiera, the sort of local fan movement, let's say, and that was nice to hear, nice to see. You can see that there's traditions in Valmiera football. So some positives, but as far as the game goes, the miracle was there for a minute, but yeah, didn't happen.
They made their debut. There was a truck that pulled up on a street in the beginning of the game to play the Champions League anthem, which of course you can't play officially. So that was good. And now they have dropped down to the second qualification round of the Conference League, and we'll talk about their opponents there in a little bit later. But now we move to the Conference League itself. And in the Conference League, we have 3 teams, 2 of which played in the first qualification round. So Riga and RFS. And RFS played first, so let's start with them. RFS drew Makedonija GP, a side from North Macedonia, and first game was away in Skopje, which was on 13th of July in front of 400 spectators, 399 of whom were locals, and one was a fan, leader of the RFS fan club, Riverside Lions, who traveled with the team there. Okay, not with the team, but for the team. He posted a very interesting vlog of his travels, and it was positively Homeric. We put it on, we retweeted it on our account. If you want to have a look at that, it has English subtitles. It's very cool. And but why this is significant is because he by himself pretty much outshouted the entire remainder of the stadium during the game, and it was plus 39 degrees. It was very inhospitable weather, but made a lot of new friends, and I think they even published some news stories about him. It was very cute. But in any case, RFS won 1-0. They had a bit more of the ball during the game, 56%. They put 2 shots on target, whereas Makedonian GP put none. And XG pretty much tells the story of this game, which is 1.23 for RFS versus 0.11 for Macedonia. So RFS completely dominated this game, if not in the result, then certainly in gameplay.
What you said about the fan, Gintsiankovskis, I think his name is. Yeah, it was, as you said, really cute. I remember the moment. I think it was when RFS scored. At that point, he had already been jumping up and down, running forwards, backwards, just shouting, singing. And I think I really liked when the camera panned to him after RFS scored, and it seemed like he was very tired and just doing this finally, good. And he could have had a breather for a minute, and it was really amazing, the dedication from the man, very impressive. But I think the club also really appreciates that, and that's good to see. But yeah, the game was a bit, well, I wouldn't say boring, but just as you would suspect it to be in the weather. So how many degrees was it? Like 38?
Plus 39 in first half and plus 38 in second half. And that's in the shade, of course.
Yeah, it was. It was just a bit slow, and it makes sense. They also had these water breaks, which is fair enough. They just managed to scrape a win out of it, being by far the better team in the game. and it was just, I think the result makes sense, and it was just a good game. RFS did what they had to do, just being in control, controlling the ball, attacking, and trying to attack as much as you can in this weather. But yeah, the one negative I would say is the goalkeeper RFS Nerugals. The injury, he had to be subbed off early in the game. Steinbors came in his place, and of course it's no worries. Steinbors is a very good goalkeeper, as we all know. But yeah, it's just I feel a bit, just feel for Nerugals because he sort of conquered the place of being the first goalkeeper in the team, which was also quite unpredictable, I would say. Hasn't been playing that much in the recent years, and then RFS took him just to fill this second goalkeeper or even the third goalkeeper spot at one point. And now, he conquered the place, and he was really good in the league. And just a bit sad because I think that's where you want to play in the European Cups. And the only negative, I would say. Other than that, very good for RFS, very good from them, and it just felt like they should be comfortable in this sort of tie of both games.
Yeah, with Nerugals, we don't really know what's the nature of his injury, but it kind of looked like maybe he pulled a groin or something like that, like he was holding his kind of the inner right leg somewhere there, which is very uncomfortable, of course. But first game, Ilic scored, by the way. So it was a very peculiar goal where Emerson was trying to lob a pass over the defenders, and Coadio was making a run. So Emerson was passing to Coadio, but then it kind of bounced off of one of the defenders, and it did make its way to Coadio, who then crossed it to Ilic, who then tapped the ball into the empty net. Really should have been maybe more than 1-0, but I mean the weather was as it was. You could see that players are just melting. And then the return game was on 20th of July in Jurmala. This is where RFS plays their first and second qualification round games in the Conference League, and that was in front of an almost full stadium, 1,800 fans out of 2,500 capacity. And it was a thriller for a minute when RFS went up 1-0 and then Macedonia equalized. But in the end, they finished the game 4-1 with Ilic, Coadio, Panic, and...
Coadio again. Coadio double.
And Coadio again, scoring the goals for RFS, and Stoikoski, a Macedonian midfielder, scoring for Macedonia. And so RFS go through to round 2. Not really an unexpected result, but very happy to see that nonetheless.
Yeah, I think Coadio was really the MVP of both games, assisting in the first game, getting a double in the second game. Usually he's more of the hard worker on the pitch, and maybe the first game wasn't really the best from him, even though he got an assist. But the second game, wow, just very amazing. Especially the second goal, that was very impressive. How he made the run. I think I thought when he got the ball, when I was watching, he took like one extra unnecessary touch, and I thought maybe the goalkeeper will get the ball now, but no, he managed to chip it with the left foot. Just beautiful goal. I love these sorts of goals. I'd say even though the result in the end is very convincing 4-1, I wouldn't say it was a convincing performance per se, because there was a moment after Macedonia scored where they could have scored more, and it was a bit shaky, I would say, for a minute, and not as comfortable as you want it to be. I think it went as this for both Riga Giants, which we'll talk about later, of course. But in the end, it was easy. Also, 2 goals from corners. Panic Cilic scoring, but Coadio, very good from him. And overall, it was just also a nice game, nice atmosphere, a lot of people in the stadium, which is always good to see for European games. And RFS again did what they had to do I'd say in just an RFS manner, playing good football, maybe shaky for a minute, but I guess it makes sense. I think as much as they've played in European games, you still, I think, tend to sort of overthink and naturally sort of want to sit back when you get the result that you want. And I think that's why they sort of conceded and could have conceded some more. But in the end. A good win. And I think after the second Quadio goal, it was pretty much done, because up until that point, I think Makedonija pretty much pressed RFS, and then they got this sort of counter-attack where they scored a good pass from Emerson.
It was a bit strange. I couldn't see the whole game because I had a work event, but I did manage to sneak out and enjoy the first half. And I was a little surprised that RFS seemed to be just doing the regular thing and attacking, even though they had a 1-goal lead, and they maybe should have or could have tried to be a bit more defensive in the beginning and tire Macedonians out. But no, they were just playing the regular thing. But the problem is that Macedonians have these very quick wingers, and RFS has fairly slow defenders. And they were playing pretty high up, and there was this one event in the beginning of the game where Macedonians managed to deliver a cutting pass in between the central defenders, and one of their players went one-on-one on the right flank against Steinbors, and Steinbors saved, but I mean that was in what, like 20th minute or something?
Yeah, still 0-0.
Yeah, it was still 0-0. It was a very easy breakthrough, which was also very concerning. I think it went past Lipushek, and Marish was nowhere in sight because RFS were playing very high. And Steinbors sort of hesitated there for a moment, even, it seemed like. So, I mean, RFS got very lucky right from the get-go. And if we're looking at stats, I mean, Macedonians really stepped their game up. They had a little bit more of the ball. They delivered way more shots. Not as many on goal, but, I mean, still comparative. And even if looking by XG, which is delightfully available for this game, it's 1.74 for RFS and 1.34 for Makedonija. So 4-1 result is really against the grain of the game, statistically speaking.
Yeah, and of course, happy that they're through. Also getting some nice points for Virslīga in the sort of league rankings for the coefficient. And yeah, that's nice to see, and good from RFS in the end, a 5-1 victory across the both games. We'll see how they do in the next round.
The other Riga team, Riga FC, that's I think a genuinely interesting pair-up. So they got Icelandic side Vikingur Reykjavik, who on paper don't seem like a particularly threatening bunch of people, but that is very misleading. It's a very good team. And Edmunds Novickis was warning that, Icelandic teams, Icelandic players, they don't seem as threatening as they are, and then they don't play quite as much abroad. But that's not because they're not good. That's because just life in Iceland is so comfortable that players don't see the point of going to, wherever to play football there. But first leg was in Riga on 13th of July in front of 5,315 spectators at the Skonto Stadium, which is an absolute pleasure seeing Skonto being full, almost full time and time again. Great atmosphere. And for us, this was a very interesting experience on the double because somehow Riga FC actually accredited our podcast as official media. So we got to go to the pre-game press conference and ask questions, and post-game press conference and ask questions there, and to enjoy the benefits of seating and free beer in the press lounge. It was just a very, very new and enjoyable experience, I must say. Yeah, some of the things that maybe came out of that is I tried to ask Stipic about what are the goals that Riga has for the Conference League overall? Because that seems to be something that people just assume, and we don't know, like, where is this standing in relation to the Virslīga or, the Latvian Cup. He said something that I think is very interesting. He said that he wants to write history with this team in Europe. I was like, okay, you want to write history? That's in line with his general narrative of trying to build heritage with FC Riga. We're wondering what this history's opening page is going to be like. And then on that day, in Skonto, 2-0, very convincing victory. Riga putting on a dominant performance against a more experienced team. Riga's average age of the starting 11 for this game was 25.9 years, Vikingur was 29.6, and still Riga more total attempts, 11 versus only 5 for Vikingur, and generally with the exception of short periods in the game, like here and there, and after the second goal, Riga were a better team, no doubt about that.
The first game was just a really good game from Riga. They were very dominant and building nice attacks, and of course Vikingur had their chances, but in that game it seemed that Riga has it in the bag. It went just very good. Goals from Aurelio, a very nice sort of overhead kick after sort of a bit of a scramble in the box after a corner, and then Marko Regge tapping in a nice pass from Soisolo. Nice to see Regge scoring in Europe as well. Just overall, nice game to see. A good atmosphere, just really good. A lot of people, and yeah, it was just a very good evening. Nothing really more to say about that. It was just solid, good performance from Riga, dominating in terms of attacks and attempts on goal. Pretty much any stat, but yeah, the second game was a bit of a weird one, I'd have to say. In the beginning, they looked good, but then sort of psychologically sat back a bit more. Also, subbed on defender for and Tucker, sort of getting 3 at the back, 3 center backs, and then yeah, sort of Vikingur started pressing, and yeah, it was just weird because I didn't really like the second game. Good first half, some attacks they really should have scored, but the second half was not what you want to see from such a club with such ambitions, especially in the first round of the qualifiers against, okay, it is a solid team, of course, and I think it's worth saying that Vikingur have an incredible home record for European games. I think it was 11 wins, only 1 draw, and no losses in Europe, and it includes quite big teams as well. I don't remember which it was, but I think the only draw they had was against the Turkish, I think it was Başakşehir, the team that RFS played last year. So it really shows how good this team is at their home ground. And they proved it this time as well, beating Riga, which is a shame for the coefficient points that we really need as a country and as a league. But for our Riga FS, this result works and it was good. But in the end, it was, I don't know. I think maybe Vikingur got robbed a bit because there are 2 huge penalty shouts which were not given. One was even deemed as a dive, and the Vikingur player got a yellow card. Interesting, he didn't really seem to protest it too much, but but it was just a bit shaky. I think they could have done more from the game. They could have easily won. And that I always wonder, why is it in these European games where if you are the better team in the second game, I understand that psychologically you want to sit back and it makes sense to sort of try and defend the score. But realistically, if you played your normal football, if it was just like a league game, you would still push and probably be the better team and score and win by like 3 goals. But you just don't do that because you sort of already get a result. And I always find it very interesting. It of course makes sense, but if you just play it as you would play normally, there's no need to sort of be afraid of conceding because you usually are good in defense as well.
It's true. Teams are kind of more conservative when playing against these lesser known opponents somehow. But Riga lined up with exactly the same. It was the exact same starting lineup as for the first game. Vikingur changed things up a little bit as they needed to, because they needed to pull back. But here's something that concerns me a little bit. There's 2 things. One, that Riga lost, which is, why did you lose? You had such a dominant performance in the first game, and so I mentioned the first question I asked Stipic, but there was another one which was in the post-game press conference where he was talking all about like how he managed to figure out Vikingur and how he knows their quality, but he also knows what to expect from them, and that he thinks that he surprised them in Riga. And I asked him, well, did you find anything surprising about them today? And he kind of tripped up there for a moment and then said something that's very profound, but at the same time concerning. What he said was that Sometimes if you kind of work too much on this and think too much of it, you can surprise yourself, which is true. You don't want to overthink things. But at the same time, I feel like maybe in this second game, Vikingur did surprise him, because it was as if the teams have swapped, in essence. Vikingur were a far more confident, far more dominant team. And yes, they have an impressive home record, and the pitch is artificial grass, unlike what teams are playing in Latvia mainly on now for a while, on natural pitches. How much can that really account for that? I mean, why didn't Riga start, I don't know, more defensive? If they so figured Vikingur out, they would have known that this team will need to attack. They're not going to sit back and just take the 2-0 defeat in Latvia and just do what? They don't have a choice. You have a strategic advantage over your opponent. You know what they're going to do. They're going to attack. So you defend a bit more.
First half, Riga was still Riga, making some brilliant attacks. Penne had a couple of chances. Jurkovskis made an amazing run. And at least one of these chances should have ended up in a goal. And I think that would have broke the game. I think that would have been, cut, done. But yeah, the second half, when it was still 0-0, they sort of, automatically started to sit back. And that's when the problems arose. And I think it was just too late substitutions because, Aurelio, Penne, Regja were already tired chasing the players. And I think that was sort of a mistake. I don't know. I don't think this is really the best Riga team yet. I think Bosancic isn't really that good if they want to go far in Europe. I think they need and Gombak. There's also, of course, Musa, but I'm not sure how he's good technically. But I think he also he has mistakes in him. I think the goal was pretty much because Bosancic was out of position. But yeah, you were saying about team surprising Riga, and I was listening to the interviews after the game with Stipic, Purinc, and Chernomordis. And Chernomordis said that they played as they suspected them to play. So I'm not sure about the surprise because they said that, they have these long throws. They are a good team, a lot of sort of aerial duels, where Chernomordis was the one fighting with their attacker. And he said it's a good attacker, but that he feels like he overall won the duel. And I think Stipic also said that, I found that interesting. He sort of, this comment, but he said that he knows that their attacker is good and that he was looking to get him to Riga before the season. And I found that very interesting because there are no rumors about this player coming to Riga, but he sort of just dropped this and then continued speaking. And perhaps it's not really worth talking about because it's in the history now. But maybe if it's true, if that really did happen, if Stipic knew the player and wanted to bring him to Riga, then it shows the quality of him and the overall team as well. But overall, of course, I agree that they shouldn't have lost. They should have won. And it's just a bit poor, but still, again, they are through. They did what they had to do across the two games. And next round is a new round, and they can get ready for that and hopefully, not surprised, but make us happy again and get through again.
I guess the takeaway here is that his first pages of this history book of European records of Riga FC may be a little bit less convincing than one would hope for. But at the end of the day, as you said, it's the result that matters, and the result is 2-1 on aggregate for Riga, and they are through to round 2. So Auda didn't play, as you mentioned, so let's talk about the next games. Next games will take place starting 25th of July, which is when Valmiera are going to play a side from San Marino, Penne, which means three feathers, if anyone's curious. And so this game is on 25th of July. Return leg is on 1st of August. And do we know anything about Penne? Are they a danger to Valmiera? Or are Valmiera more of a danger to themselves in this bout?
Isn't it the team that Riga played also in European qualifiers when it was COVID? And when the game was sort of broken off because the light fell off the roof of the Skonto Stadium, so they had to restart the game the next day in the morning. I think, wasn't it the team?
No, that was a different San Marino side called Tre Fiori, which is, I guess, three of something else.
But still, yeah, I don't think then we know anything about this team. It's a San Marino team, and realistically, of course, automatically I'm thinking, what really is there for them? Of course, they have to be a good team. They're still playing in Europe, and it doesn't matter that they're from San Marino. They're definitely better than the San Marino national team. I'm guessing the most players are not actually from San Marino. Probably, like, I think Valmiera should win. It's definitely, of all the teams, 4 teams that are playing now in the Conference League second round, all Latvian teams are on the same level. They definitely have the easiest opponent by far. And if it was RFS or Riga playing them, or even, I'm not sure about Auda, but then I would be confident that they have to win. But with Valmiera, I have a bad feeling. I really have a bad feeling that it's not going to go well. I hope it doesn't, it should. But Valmiera at the moment are just. I said that the squad that they put out for the second game would be very good and competitive in this league. But now, one of their best players of the game, Kapic, the new player, has been apparently already loaned out to Polish side Lech Poznan, and it's just weird. What's happening there? Why is that? And
Well, the owner of Valmiera now owns that team as well. Or so I've heard. He just acquired it, or a stake in it, and so I guess decided to prioritize that squad over Valmiera, who are in the middle of their European campaign. It's really bizarre. It's really strange.
yeah,
The guy was here for like 2 weeks.
exactly. And it's also not just, it's not fair towards the player to sort of just play like this with him. Just, okay, go for this team for a while and just play around. And it's a Champions League team. You can't just say it's go to any team. And sad for Counts as well, because he's probably trying to count on this player. I don't think he's involved anyhow in this decision. And then yeah, he just gets this very good player. He was a very good player, no doubt about that. Actually experienced, and definitely exactly what Valmiera needed in their midfield, because I think their midfield is a bit poor at the moment. And yeah, and then he just gets taken out, and that's why I think there's a bit shakiness in Valmiera, apparently because of the owner as well. Maybe he was tired of playing with Valmiera, now has another toy to play with. Well, I wouldn't say he's sort of this manipulative owner. Maybe play is a bit harsh, but yeah, still weird, and I'm not sure. They should win, but I really don't feel confident at all. What I'm thinking now is that, okay, maybe at least they'll get the win in one game. Doesn't matter the overall aggregate score, and maybe some points for the coefficient. But of course, I hope they win. But as we've said, I think our teams in Europe play better against better teams than worse teams. These sort of little unknown teams, it's always shaky and a bit. I don't remember any game where a Latvian team were just convincingly getting over these sort of teams from little countries, unknown teams. Not a single one I can remember. So
How is Riga relative to Derry City?
what you
That
see, I
was,
wouldn't. Yeah, that was convincing, but
yeah,
I don't think it's like, I wouldn't compare it to like Penne. I think
no,
it's an
no, you're
Irish
right.
team, and I wouldn't say it's a small team from a small country. And yeah, Riga was convincing last year up until the Portuguese team, but I wouldn't call Derry City, or what was the other one with which they beat, a small team. I think it was a Slovenian Slovakian team that they beat.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking of RFS with Classic, which is a team from Faroe Islands, but they're doing. I think they made it to second round of Champions League this year, and RFS did struggle
Yeah,
significantly against them.
yeah, and
Yeah,
also
maybe it's this idea that we're smaller, and so we're kind of don't have a lot of experience playing from ahead, as it were. But I think Valmiera are gonna go through. I think they're gonna get through to the third qualification round, because I mean maybe it's not gonna be easy, but I think they should be able to overcome Trepene. Their coefficient ratings are similar, meaning that Trepene is also a new side for European competitions with not that much experience. It's 4 for Trepene versus 3.5 for Valmiera. Their transfer market values are significantly different. Valmiera is 5 times more valuable And then there's another advantage that Virslīga is in full swing now, but Sammarinese Football Championship, which is apparently how you say San Marino, it ended in May and it will only start in September. So they're in the middle of vacation period. So Valmiera should be in better shape. They should be in better headspace in terms of competitive games. So I think with this one, insofar as I'm thinking of it, is that unless Valmiera become their own worst enemy, they should take this convincingly. But we'll see what happens. First game 25th of July away in San Marino, return game 1st of August back in Valmiera.
You see, but exactly what I'm talking about. You said they're in the middle of sort of off-season, and that's exactly why it's worse for Valmiera, because they're sort of in so much better condition technically, and I think this is where it always goes wrong, because the worse the other team have it, the better they do, I feel like. But
at the very least, they can outrun them, you know. If it doesn't work on quality, you can just take by brute force, I think.
Yeah. And Valmiera can play in the Dahlin Stadium again, right?
I don't see why not. The first, if they could play Champions League qualifier, why can't they play second leg of Conference League? I think the requirements up a little bit in third round of Conference League.
Yeah. Well, I think that maybe maybe in San Marino it might be a bit shaky, maybe a draw, but okay, in front of their own crowd they should beat them and get through, so hopefully that happens.
Yeah, then on 26th of July, RFS are playing Sabah from Azerbaijan, and then the return leg is on 3rd of August. This one is a little bit of a dark horse, I think. So I think RFS should be okay, but in all fairness, this might be a very even kind of lineup, because well, we know RFS, we don't know much about Sabah, except that they do have high ambitions and quite a bit of money behind them, and whilst a new club, much like RFS, they seem to be hell-bent on making this, Stepician heritage for themselves outside of Azerbaijan as well. RFS has a much better coefficient, and they are actually on the seeded side in this draw, but Sabah is more valuable as per Transfermarkt by a couple of million, which isn't too terrible, but still significant. But they're also on vacation. Their season starts in August, so they're in pre-season now. This one, I don't know. I have worries. I have faith, but I am also concerned. What do you think?
First, I think I heard that the team is pronounced Shaba. I think I heard someone say that. Maybe Sabah, maybe Shaba.
I'm sure that it's something that we're not butchering in English.
Yeah, and
we're butchering a third language team in second language. A podcast that's about a different language country altogether.
Of course, of course, good point. But yeah, this is their first time in Europe as well, which is also sort of unpredictable how it's gonna go. But yeah, the fact that they have some money behind it, I think it's gonna be a team that's hard to analyze for RFS. In a way, maybe it's actually good, because I feel like always analyzing opponents, it's also what can go against you. If you just play your football and you don't know what you're coming up against, maybe it's even easier. But I think it's all in the head. I hope they go through, but I think it's gonna be very even, a good matchup. And yeah, it's just excited to see, because honestly, I don't know what to think of, especially because they're also from Azerbaijan. It's a very peculiar country, I'd say, to play in. It's probably gonna be hot in Azerbaijan as well when they go over there. So
it depends on what time they play. But no, it's an international squad. They have players from Spain, from Brazil, from like all over the place. Yeah, they have a manager that's been with them for a couple of years now. It's this Russian guy who was appointed in 2021. So, I mean, clearly he's doing something right that he's still in that position. So I think they're a dangerous squad. But yeah, sadly, we don't really know much more about them. I'm sure that Victor Smoras will prepare diligently as he does. And we'll see. This is a nerve tingling one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next matchup is also a Sabah or Shaba, a new team in Europe, Auda, making their European debut against Spartak Trnava from Slovakia. And Auda is only starting the competition now from the second round, which I also find interesting. They're a new team, and because they won the Latvian Cup, they're also already in the second round and already getting quite a fierce team to go up against. The transfer market values, I think, say a lot. 4.4 million against 7.6. Maybe not that much for Spartak, but they're an experienced team. They're a well-established team, and I think they're quite confidently the likely winners of this qualifying round. But because Auda is new in Europe, and I've seen that they've also had a lot of transfers during this transfer window, which of course isn't good because the players wouldn't really have played a lot yet and wouldn't develop this chemistry between them. But it seems that what Auda is planning, hoping to go through, because why else would they acquire these players? Okay, maybe for this league, maybe to get a spot to guarantee European football next season as well. But I think this is the game I'm the most excited for, actually, because it's interesting to see a new team in Europe, such a team as Auda, who aren't particularly playing bad and have been starting to play even better recently and starting to score goals. And there's a lot of interesting players that I want to see in Europe, such as Rubenis and Saveljevs, Olimbashevs, and also, of course, all the foreign players in Auda as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I hope it doesn't go instantly badly and they concede like 3 in the first half and then the tie is over. But who knows? It's so unpredictable and I don't know what to expect. And then that's why I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, the first game was played here in Riga on 27th of July, return on 3rd of August as well. In fact, all return games other than the Valmiera ones are played on 3rd of August. And I agree. I mean, this doesn't look good for Auda. And if they manage to get through this one somehow, then the third qualifying round, they are completely screwed. Don't remember who they're up against, but it's a major European team. Here, my worry is that, yeah, Auda could pull off a surprise, but their record against the Virslīga top teams is very, very bad. What can we then expect them to show against a top international team? By top, I mean the top in Slovakia, not internationally overall. Spartak's coefficient is similar to Riga's, even higher. Yeah, they're not tremendously more valuable, but still almost double. I don't know. I hope Auda will show something and be competitive and lucky, but I don't really think they'll go through further than this, which is fine as well. I agree. Hopefully it's not going to be embarrassing, I guess is my takeaway.
Yeah, if they somehow go through, they're facing either Club Brugge or Aarhus from Denmark. So yeah, they are screwed either way. But I hope that maybe they don't lose both games. That I think that's the best realistic outcome to expect of them. But it's still going to be interesting. I think also going to be quite a full stadium. I think a lot of people will be interested to see Auda in Europe. I think it's also interesting that Auda is playing there because I don't think that they're that well established of a club. I think there's still sort of these minor things that even for Virslīga sometimes look bad. Sort of these, I think, some issues with kits or whatever.
So this Auda, I think the remarkable part is that 2 years ago they played in second division.
Yeah.
And now they're playing in the Conference League. But of course, there is the story that once Auda, the historical Auda, the oldest still active club in Latvia, I believe, got promoted to Virslīga, in order to raise the funds necessary to actually play there, they essentially became another, what would it be called? Not really a farm club, but like a backup club for Riga FC. So they share an owner. And so this Auda that has had all the money and stippage injected into it last season is not really the same Auda that has that heritage for all these years. But they do have the money.
Yeah, that is true. And that's why, because there's pretty much a new club at this point. It's interesting to see what they can do. But it's gonna be great even if they lose, just to see how they fare in this. And it's a good point about the record against the bigger clubs in which league. And I think they're also playing RFS today or tomorrow, just before the European game, which is I think gonna be good as well. Playing sort of big team, good both for RFS and Auda. I really feel it like it's gonna be a draw, and both teams gonna sort of get ready and sort of fight it out in the Europe and sort of. I think it's even easier to look at it now because they're so low, such low expectations that we can't be disappointed. Only happy if somehow they miraculously go through.
We're hoping for not losing both games, which is
Yeah.
a very good benchmarks you have. In terms of season, Slovakian league starts next week. Spartak, they should be warmed up, but not in the midst of it as Auda is. So maybe that is an advantage can be used. And of course, Auda's coach Simo Valakari has a very good and successful experience in Conference League with his previous team. And then finally, Riga are gonna play Hungarian Kecskeméti. I suppose that's how that's pronounced. They're going to play a first leg away on 27th of July. And, Riga are favorites here. Their UEFA coefficient is significantly higher. It's 4.125 for the Hungarian side versus 10 for Riga. And Riga is twice more valuable as per Transfermarkt. And of course, Hungarian league hasn't started yet either. It starts, interestingly, on the same day as the Slovakian league starts, 28th of July. Plus, playing first leg away, I think it's might be advantageous for Riga. They'll get to know the team a little bit better, and then they can finish the job in Riga on 3rd of August. I think Riga should go through, if not effortlessly, then confidently.
That's interesting because I feel like it's a tough opponent. I think the Hungarian sides are very good. And I, again, don't really feel comfortable or confident about this one. I feel like Riga might go out here. It's always a bit shaky with Riga in Europe. Last year, 2 rounds are very good. But I don't know. I think that sort of maybe the players I just don't understand what's happening with them in Europe. They sort of play good but have these easy mistakes, and against such a team which is sort of good but technically worse than Riga.
Well, do you remember what happened when RFS played Pushkash 2 years ago, I think, in the Conference League?
Okay, that's a good point.
Second qualification round as well.
That's actually a very good point. They were very, very convincingly won.
It was 5-0 on aggregate or even 6-0 or something like that, and the Hungarian side just put no challenge to RFS. And
but before the game, it wasn't like RFS are going to win it easy. I think it was predicted that. Exactly.
It was nerve-wracking.
But that was a very good run.
But here's my theory. I think in terms of football styles between the two leagues, something about Virslīga is like kryptonite to the Hungarian style of football. So, and because Riga and RFS are not tremendously dissimilar, I think then that's going to be the magic key to unlock this Hungarian team as well.
Maybe, yeah, but that year RFS were just flying, and they could have even beaten Gen.
It should have, yeah, Gent.
Oh, Gen, yeah, and yeah, but
they were flying, but I think it was not as good a team as this year RFS have, and certainly it wasn't, I think, as good a team as Riga have this year.
I feel like it was the best RFS team. I thought that was the team. Emerson was good. Šimković, there it is. He was also good. I remember he scored a header against it. I think it was Genk, but yeah, good season.
Genk is a different team.
Yeah, sorry, I always forget which one it was. But yeah, okay, it's a good point you make, and you make me more hopeful now. So I hope they go through, but I don't think it's going to be easy. And I think, again, one game is not going to be a win. Maybe the first leg could be a draw in Hungary, but yeah, again, at their home ground, maybe they will show their football and and show what they can do. Overall, I feel like it would be very disappointing if the only team going through from this round is Valmiera, because then it's also probably over for them in the next round. But preferably 3 teams go through. I think that's achievable, and I hope it does happen. Riga, RFS, Valmiera, I'm rooting for you. And Auda, do your best.
I think that's gonna be what it's gonna be. I think 3 teams go through. Auda gets a participation trophy for their first European experience, which is nice. I mean, worst case, 2 teams go through, RFS and Riga, and we're still fine. But I think round 3, that's when the problems will start. And in round 3, actually, I don't know who is the draw for Valmiera, but in terms of RFS and Riga have it worse. I don't remember who it was, but RFS still have a draw that is very manageable. So RFS,
Interesting you say that. I'm looking at it. So Riga have Dynamo Kiev, of course,
yeah.
Ukrainian giant, but RFS, where is it? I don't think they have it easier by any means. They have either Twente from Netherlands or Hammarby from Sweden, both big teams. It's probably going to be Twente as well, and I think Twente is better than Dynamo Kiev, so I think Riga has it easier. But I don't know. It will be interesting to see.
I think I think that RFS are better than Riga. I think that's the.
I think a bit of bias.
That's my mental scheme.
Maybe, yeah. Overall, you're very optimistic about these rounds. I wouldn't be that optimistic. I think 2 teams are going to go through. Of course, hoping for 3, but I have a feeling that 2. And I really couldn't say because either could lose, even Valmiera, which they shouldn't do. But of course, I hope for the best. And yeah, I hope all is good.
We'll see after the 3rd of August.